You check your phone without thinking. You open the same apps in the same order. You walk the same route. You respond to stress the same way. And you call all of this personality. But what if much of what you believe is your identity is simply automation? Not conscious choice repeated daily, but neural shortcuts reinforced so often they became invisible. The brain is built to conserve energy. Conscious decision-making is metabolically expensive. Every deliberate evaluation requires coordination across multiple regions. If you had to consciously decide how to brush your teeth, tie your shoes, respond to every social cue, and navigate every familiar street, you would exhaust yourself before noon. So the brain builds patterns. Repetition strengthens neural pathways until actions require minimal oversight. This process is called habit formation, but it extends far beyond obvious routines. It shapes emotional reactions, conversational tone, posture, even the way you interpret ambiguous situations. When something happens, your response often feels immediate and natural. In reality, it is predicted. At the center of this system is a structure deep within the brain called the basal ganglia. It plays a critical role in automating repeated behaviors. When a sequence of actions is practiced consistently, the brain compresses it into a single behavioral unit. Instead of processing each step individually, it triggers the entire routine at once when a cue appears. This is why habits feel effortless once established. The cue activates the stored loop. The loop runs with little conscious interference. The reward reinforces the pathway. Over time, the behavior becomes default. But here is where the concept becomes unsettling. The brain does not only automate physical actions, it automates interpretations. Imagine someone cancels plans. One person immediately thinks they must be busy. Another thinks they are being rejected. The external event is identical. The internal reaction differs. That reaction is not freshly chosen each time. It is shaped by past experiences, reinforced interpretations, emotional conditioning. The brain learned a pattern and now applies it automatically. Over years, these patterns layer into what feels like a stable self. You say, I am anxious, I am optimistic, I am short-tempered, I am disciplined. But many of these traits may be clusters of automated responses. They are efficient, predictable, reinforced. The efficiency is useful. Automation allows fluid living, but it also creates rigidity. Once a response becomes default, the brain prefers it. Even when circumstances change, the old pattern may still trigger. You react before evaluating whether the reaction fits. This is why change feels unnatural. When you attempt to respond differently to a familiar cue, you are interrupting an established neural shortcut. The brain resists not because change is impossible, but because automation is efficient. Efficiency feels comfortable. There is also a predictive element. The brain constantly anticipates what will happen next. It uses past data to model the present. If certain social situations previously led to embarrassment, the brain predicts threat. It prepares anxiety before conscious reasoning begins. The emotional response feels like part of you, but it is a protective forecast. Identity becomes the story that explains these forecasts. You do not say my brain predicts social discomfort based on past data. You say I am shy. The label simplifies the complexity. The more you repeat a narrative about yourself, the stronger it becomes. Narrative reinforces pattern. Pattern reinforces narrative. Neuroplasticity reveals that these pathways are not permanent. They are reinforced through repetition, not carved in stone. When you deliberately interrupt a pattern and replace it consistently, the brain begins encoding a new shortcut. It is slower at first because conscious oversight is required. But repetition gradually reduces effort. This is why small, consistent behavioral changes are more powerful than dramatic temporary efforts. Each repetition is a vote for a different automatic future. There is a subtle danger in misunderstanding this. Recognizing automation does not mean dismissing responsibility. It means shifting responsibility upstream. Instead of blaming yourself for reacting automatically, you examine which patterns are being reinforced and why. Environment plays a massive role. Cues in your surroundings trigger routines. If your workspace constantly signals distraction, distraction becomes automated. If your social environment rewards certain emotional expressions, those expressions become default. Even beliefs operate through repetition. If you repeatedly think, "I am bad at this," the brain links that context with avoidance. Avoidance reduces practice. Reduced practice maintains difficulty. Difficulty reinforces belief. The loop continues. Breaking a loop requires awareness at the moment of cue. That awareness creates a small gap between stimulus and response. In that gap lies flexibility. At first, the gap feels unnatural, almost uncomfortable. That discomfort is the friction of deautomation. Over time, new loops can replace old ones, but the brain never fully deletes the original pathway. It simply strengthens an alternative until it becomes dominant. Under stress, older patterns may resurface because they were practiced longer. This explains why progress can feel fragile during difficult periods. The concept extends beyond individuals. Cultural habits exist too. Shared interpretations become collective automation. Societies respond to symbols and events through conditioned narratives. Change at that scale requires collective interruption of pattern. Understanding automation changes how you view yourself. Instead of seeing fixed traits, you see practiced responses. Instead of seeing destiny, you see reinforcement. There is freedom in that realization, but also responsibility. If identity is partly automation, then daily repetition is identity construction. You are not a static personality discovering itself. You are a dynamic system reinforcing itself. Every reaction strengthens something. Every repeated thought deepens a pathway. Every routine vote shapes future default. And perhaps the most powerful question is not "who am I?" but "what am I rehearsing?" Here are 400 words to connect directly at the end. And most people never ask that question. They move through days, weeks, years, rehearsing the same emotional responses, the same self-limiting conclusions, the same patterns of avoidance and deflection, and then wonder why their life feels like it is running in place. The answer is not a lack of desire for change. It is a lack of awareness about what is being practiced. Because rehearsal is constant. You are always training something. The question is whether you are training it intentionally or by default. Every morning you wake up and reach for your phone before your feet hit the floor, you are rehearsing urgency. You are telling your nervous system that the world's demands are more important than your own orientation. Every time you avoid a difficult conversation and feel momentary relief, you are rehearsing avoidance. Every time you dismiss a compliment, deflect praise, or immediately locate what went wrong in something that went right, you are rehearsing inadequacy. These are not personality traits, they are practice scores. And the brain, loyal and efficient as it is, takes the score seriously. It builds infrastructure around what you repeatedly do. It widens the roads you travel most often and lets the unused paths grow over. This is not punishment. It is optimization. The brain is preparing you for the life it believes you are living based on the evidence you keep providing. So what evidence are you providing? This is not about toxic positivity or forcing yourself to think happy thoughts. The brain sees through performance immediately. It responds to behavior, not intention. What you repeatedly do matters infinitely more than what you occasionally decide. The research on neuroplasticity is clear on this point. Change does not require a revelation. It does not require hitting rock bottom, or finding the perfect moment, or feeling ready. It requires repetition of a different behavior in the presence of the original cue. Small, consistent, unsexy. Repetition. You do not need to overhaul your life. You need to interrupt one pattern long enough for a new one to gain footing. One pause before the automatic reaction. One different response where the old one would have run unopposed. One moment of choosing discomfort over the familiar loop. Do that enough times and something quietly shifts. Not because you changed who you are, but because you changed what you rehearse. And eventually, what you rehearse becomes who you are.